I was looking at semiconductor companies, and sheesh, they really have come up a lot, these stocks, especially NVIDIA, Taiwan Semi, even Broadcom. They're just so high, and they always seem overvalued. But I guess you just got to buy it, even if it's overvalued, and just hope for the best, because it just always seems to be going up. I don't think NVIDIA is ever going to fall below 2 trillion. I guess it's possible. It's just hard to imagine. It just seems like it could hit 5 trillion next year. It just goes up so much. But what about the CHIPS Act? And what about Trump? And he's talking about tariffs. So that's going to be that would really affect this company, because like Biden had a CHIPS Act in place. Does Victor still short? I don't think so. I think he got rid of that. I think he did it for like maybe a month. I think he actually made money, because I think he picked a good time. It's hard to short a stock for like really long time. Like shorting a stock, you generally want to do it like a limited amount of time, like a month at most, because you pay. It's like you're paying interest, because it's kind of like taking a loan. When you short a stock, you have to take a loan, in essence. So the longer the short is out there, the more you have to pay back. That he sold short. If you do options, then you don't have to pay any additional fees. You just paid whatever the premium was in the options contract. But when you sell short, you have to do that on margin, and it could be like sometimes like 8% on margin. So if you leave the short out there for a year, you pay 8% automatically. So you have to hope your trade, even if it's flat, your trade, you lose 8%. Why isn't Indie Semiconductor there? Indie? Well, this is only publicly traded companies in the U.S. Let me see. Is Indie publicly traded in the U.S.? Like, it doesn't list Pink Sheets stocks, this website. 900 million. So I mean, it's way down the list. Let me show you my Excel file. Did you guys email me, get your free DCF model? I've updated a bunch of times. What's going on? I can't see anything. Indie. I mean, it's not on the list, but I don't know why it's not on the list. It's in California. INDI. It trades on NASDAQ. That is weird. Maybe it's not a semiconductor. Okay, it's not in the semiconductor industry. I only pulled tickers in the industry of semiconductors. They're in the semiconductor equipment and materials, which is a different industry. Because a lot of people say, how come you didn't talk about this company in the industry analysis? Because I just pull a particular industry, and sometimes a company is in a slightly different industry. They make chips for automobiles. Yeah, I don't know how they exactly categorize companies and industries, but they're in the semiconductor equipment and materials industry, which is. Let me show you the website. That's any website. I was thinking of shorting Nvidia, but I don't know. It always seems like it, right? So this is the semiconductor equipment and materials industry. SMTK is the biggest. Why is it? ASML is the biggest, 259 billion. That's the Dutch company, right? ASML. Yeah, the Dutch company. Yeah, so they're in this industry. So they're right here, Indie. And I think I did a video on Indie before. So semiconductors or semiconductor equipment. Yeah, it's just in a different industry. Yeah, I wouldn't sell short because you can lose a lot of money, but I might just buy put options. And you can lose your premium, but you can't really lose, like, it's not infinite losses. And I wouldn't buy like uncovered calls or uncovered puts, something like that. That would be too risky. So yeah, email me if you want the DCF. I sent it to a lot of people. I think this version is the best one. I upgraded it a couple of times. This is the version 3. So you just have to put in like the market cap, stock price, and revenue. And just all you have to do is input these variables, and it gives you a stock price. It's a DCF model, so it tells you what the stock is worth. And you could even play around with the revenue. You can make it grow faster or grow less, or even negative revenue. Like if you have a company with negative free cash flow, you can still use this. You just have to change the cash flow in future years to positive at some point. But I have a video. If you email me, I'll send you the video also. In the video, I go through it step by step how to fill it out. Make sure you watch. Try to watch. At least 100 people have emailed me, and I sent all 100 the DCF. But in the email, I say just watch this video, and I say you don't have to even watch it. Just turn it on, and just leave. Let it run in the background. But hardly anybody even watched it, because I see the stats. When I started the channel, people offered me money for the DCF, and I turned it down. One guy offered $500, and I said no. So now I'm giving it for free, and all I ask people is just to watch a video. And you don't have to, and you get it free. But I'm sure you watched the video, Blade, but most people didn't. I think you should make a disclaimer saying it's just a model and doesn't predict. Yeah, I guess I should do that, right? Let me write that. Okay, this, come on. This is, do not rely on this DCF exclusively for investment. I don't know what to write. I'll figure it out later. I've watched one of your videos every day since that was the deal. Yeah, I'm sure you did, so I appreciate that. But I know most people didn't do it because, especially the first couple of days, like one day I sent it like 50 emails, and when I look at my stats the next day, it's not even close to 50. And most people didn't watch it all the way through because I see how many people watched the video, and I also see how long the average view was. Okay, whatever, it doesn't matter. So yeah, so you just got to input and then you get your results. So I did so I did a bunch of semiconductor stocks the past couple of days. I did Nvidia, Taiwan Semi, Broadcom, AMD, and Intel. Of course, the top 4 companies I did, they all seem really overvalued. And then Intel seems really undervalued. But that doesn't mean you should buy Intel because the stock is just awful. Even though I'm tempted to buy it. But one thing that could really change the semiconductor industry is Trump. He's talking about tariffs. So a tariff is just like an additional tax on something. So like, if there's a tariff for semiconductor chips that come from Taiwan into the United States, which he's talking about. Let me close this. So say like this is hard to see. Yeah, just say for example, say Nvidia buys 20 billion. That's a lot, right? 20 billion of semiconductor chips from Taiwan Semiconductor in a year. And if Trump has this tax where you have to pay an additional 10%, I guess, penalty, call it, on all chips that come from Taiwan. So instead of 20 million, which you would have paid without the tariff, now it's 22 billion. So obviously Nvidia is going to have to either charge customers 10% more when they sell the chips, or they just get squeezed a little and they lose 10% margin on that, on those chips. So either way, if you're an investor with Nvidia, it's probably going to not be good for the company. But what Biden did was the CHIPS Act. And of course, anything Biden did, Trump is not, shits on. He says it's terrible. It's a bad idea. So the CHIPS Act was a way to encourage companies to manufacture in the United States. So he didn't do a tariff, but he gave money to companies. He gave a lot of money to like Taiwan Semiconductor and other semiconductor companies in Taiwan. Who's the other one? I forget. There's another big Taiwanese semiconductor, but I think this article talks about, like, he gave like $10 billion to Taiwan Semi to encourage them to build manufacturing plants in the U.S. And that way, of course, it leads to more U.S. jobs. I mean, that's really the goal of it, because INTL or INTI. I should have it on this list. Come on. I've watched. Yeah, so he gave a lot of money to. He gave money to Intel. He gave money to a lot of companies if they promised to manufacture in the U.S. And Taiwan Semiconductor is building a facility in Arizona. So they are using that money because it's so much cheaper to manufacture in Taiwan. Like, it's probably like, I don't know, like 20% of the cost, because just like payroll alone, like in the US, you know, to hire people that would work at a semiconductor fab facility, it's not like we're in a normal manufacturing facility where you could pay people like $15 an hour. You know, you might have to pay them like $30, $40, $50 an hour. But even in Taiwan, you know, you could pay someone like the US equivalent of like $10 an hour in Taiwan. And that would be like a good deal for that employee to get $10 an hour. So everything's just so expensive in the United States, you know, to pay people, the cost of materials, just the rent, the taxes. So that's why it's just cheaper to make things overseas, like in China or Mexico or Taiwan, and ship it to the United States. Even though you're spending all that money in the shipping the product overseas, it's still so much cheaper. I don't know the exact numbers. I just know it's a lot cheaper. And they talk about it right here. TSMC, they're building a fab plant in Arizona. So that should help TSMC a lot. I was hoping with Trump in the White House, it would help Intel, especially if he adds a tariff, because it makes it more appealing to buy U.S.-made semiconductor chips. Because if you make it in the U.S., you don't have to pay the tariff if you ship it within the United States. But it's still going to be probably cheaper to pay that tariff penalty and get it from Taiwan Semiconductor. I wish they would say how much, but and so Trump said just put a tariff on everything. Any product that gets shipped in the United States, just put a tariff on it. So it's another tax. So it's going to raise the prices of everything, because we consume a lot. United States imports a lot of stuff, especially from China. If he does that, if he does put a tariff, we might see like prices go up to 55%. This is for toys, but apparel could go up as high as 20%. Household appliances could increase in price by 30%. It's already so expensive, right? I mean, everything's just so much more money than what it was pre-COVID. Like, it seems like you could barely live anymore in the United States, because just to pay rent and to pay your bills and food, it's already, you don't have much left over, let alone to get a new car or to buy nice clothes. It's just like everything is just so overpriced. Inflation has killed everyone. And generally, your salary doesn't go up nearly as much as inflation. It usually lags inflation, the salary increase. So with this whole tariff thing, we might see NVIDIA, all these companies, because NVIDIA, I think, imports most of their chips from Taiwan Semiconductor. I think same thing with Broadcom and AMD. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think most of their chips are they get from Taiwan Semiconductor. And if this tariff does go through, it could lead to Intel with a lot more business, but it could also, really hurt these companies up here. But it doesn't seem like anything hurts NVIDIA. But who knows? I think there's a decent chance that could happen. But it's hard to predict these things. Like I try to look into like the macro side of things, and it's like, and it just seems a lot more difficult. And it's hard to like even if this tariff thing did happen, it could take like a year or two before it kind of like it affects the market. Just like what's his name? That guy Bill Ackman. He shorted the U.S. market in January. He saw that there was this thing called COVID that was in China that was kind of affecting things, and it was moving. It was kind of like going throughout the world, but it took a while for it to like really hit. Remember in like March 2020, it was only like 50 people died from COVID in the US, but it really started ballooning. So he shorted the market in January. I mean, it's amazing. Like he timed it pretty well. So yeah, so let me know about the DCF if you have questions. It would be good to kind of, because I email a lot of people this DCF model. So if you play around with it, it'll be good to ask me questions like, oh, how come like, when I put this number in, this happens. But I guess if you could find a semiconductor company that doesn't import that much from overseas, I mean, the only company that will purely benefit from the tariffs is Intel, because Intel is the only company that does both. They make semiconductor chips and they design them. NVIDIA just designs chips. NVIDIA is just a foundry. I mean, it's just fabless. They just design, they don't manufacture. Taiwan is a pure play foundry. They just manufacture chips. They don't design chips. Broadcom is fabless. AMD is fabless. You could tell from the CapEx also, because you see how much Intel spends in CapEx and Taiwan Semi, because they do all the manufacturing for these other companies. So if it has a really high CapEx, they're probably a foundry. Micron has high CapEx, so I guess I didn't know Micron was is Micron a foundry? I didn't know they were a foundry, actually. You definitely have to play around with the DCF because it takes a while to really understand it. Okay, so Micron is like Intel, I guess. they do both. They're a fabless and foundry, but apparently Micron only makes its own chips. They don't make chips for other companies. Intel, I know, is a foundry for other companies, not just its own chips. Intel designs and manufactures its own chips, but they also manufacture chips for other companies. I'm not sure which companies. Okay, you may be right about Micron now. Micron includes 4 fabs. Okay. Okay. Who does Intel manufacture? I wish I could find out like who Intel, like what percent of their foundry business is NVIDIA, for example, like, because I know they do manufacturing. Okay, like what percent of their business is Broadcom, or what percent is NVIDIA? U.S. Intel supplies microprocessor most manufacturers, and it's. Is that somewhere? I've never seen that before. Does Intel manufacture chips for NVIDIA? Okay. So this article says future AI graphic processors designed by NVIDIA will be constructed using Intel's cutting-edge 18A manufacturing process. That would be great if Intel manufactures NVIDIA's chips. That would really help Intel a lot. I always wonder, because NVIDIA apparently has the best chips, like the most advanced, the best technology. But Intel, I mean, NVIDIA doesn't manufacture its chips. They go to other companies like Intel or Taiwan Semi. But when they go to those other companies, can't those other companies just copy? Maybe not copy exactly their chips, but if NVIDIA's chips so amazing, why can't Intel just look at them and say, let's just make it like NVIDIA's chips, but we'll change a little bit so they don't, sue us. I always think that. I mean, I know there's things in place where they can't do that, but they're kind of giving them their secret sauce. Did anybody ever think about that? Like, I don't think Intel builds its own chips. I think they build for themselves and everyone else. Taiwan Semiconductor definitely makes chips for a lot of companies, but I'm pretty sure Intel, because Intel, the amount of money Intel is spending on they've been spending a ton of money on new manufacturing facilities. The amount of money they're spending, they wouldn't even have the ability to make and sell all those chips. They have to manufacture for other companies. So I can't find AMAT and LCRX on your list. Applied Materials. Let me just make sure they're in the same industry. You see, Applied Materials is in the other industry, semiconductor equipment and materials. I don't know why they separated out, but they did. So whenever I do these videos, I just put in I don't pick companies. I just pick the industry. So if I'm doing NVIDIA is in semiconductors. That's their industry. So I just pick the industry when I go to this website. So it gives me every company in the semiconductors industry. NVIDIA, Taiwan Semi, Broadcom. But the other industry is semiconductor equipment and materials. And Lam Research is in that industry. NVIDIA is the only one that focuses on GPUs. All is about the yield. Can they attain the yield that is economical? Well, their margins are unbelievable. NVIDIA's margins. So I totally missed that. I didn't think NVIDIA can have really strong margins. I thought their margins could be like 20, 30%. So that's why I never thought the stock could ever get that high. I totally didn't realize semiconductor companies can have their margins are like 50, 60%, which is unbelievable. Well, you live and learn, right? I guess. You can't pick two industries. You have to pick. I'm going to download the other industry, the other semiconductor industry, just so I have it. Huh. Do you like the new thing I added on my chart? It's 52-week high and 52-week low. NVIDIA, Taiwan Semi, and Broadcom, they're trading pretty much at their 52-week high or within 10% of that. AMD is trading pretty close to its 52-week low. So if you're looking for semiconductor stock, AMD might be good because they're trading. Because I hate buying stock. I mean, I have bought stock trading at the 52 all-time highs, but I hate buying it. I much rather buy a stock that's trading at a discount. But sometimes it's better to buy it trading at an all-time high, because if you wait, like we did with NVIDIA, you could lose out on all this upside. But I prefer not to buy a stock that's trading at its all-time high. I did that with Google 2 years ago, and it took me a year just to make money on the stock. I was down for like ever. It's just bad timing. Sometimes, it just happens. You can't always time the market. I wish I didn't. Yeah, so this is the other industry. So ASML is the biggest, the Dutch company. AMAT is 2 and LRCX is 3. The two companies you mentioned. Another less known equipment of high-end semiconductors, Tokyo Electron. Yeah, Intel. It's possible. 3 years ago, Intel did not build for other companies. I'm not sure about that, but I know now they do, because not that I seen they do. The amount of money they're spending, they couldn't ever sell that many chips. They're really leaning into foundry business. But you would think Intel is a great buy, right? Because they're spending so much money to build out their foundry business, and the business is off the charts. The demand for AI chips there's not enough supply. So you would think Intel would be like, the stock would be $1 trillion market cap, but instead it's going the opposite direction. Nobody's buying it. maybe if I look at their 10K, that usually has all the information in it. It might be old, the 10K though, but it's from January. At least it's from this year. This is crazy. Okay. NVIDIA is only mentioned 4 times in their 10K. It's about products and competition. Does anybody read that? I know we talked about 10K, but in the 10K, there's like, it's usually like a lot of pages, sometimes like 50 pages of notes, like, and they give all the scenarios, like what if we can't sell our product, or what if we can't pay our debt, and so they always give these market and business overview. So they always give these scenarios. I should probably read that more. I don't really do it. Okay, here they call key business developments. Okay, we expanded partnerships under the Rapid Assured Microelectronics. That's a mouthful. Okay, under their RAMP-C program created by the U.S. Department of Defense in 2021 to assure domestic access to lead-edge technology in the U.S. So this is the money they got from the government to. This is the CHIPS Act, the money from the CHIPS Act. Baldeep Singh, Intel is outdated garbage. Also recall on the chips. Yes, that is true. They have, their technology is not that good. They're really they really fell behind, and I totally agree there. And they've had a lot of issues with products, a lot of defects. But if they could get through this mess, and they still have, $60 billion of revenue. So, because if you sell, like if you had a business, right? And let's just say you had 1 million of revenue. But say 10% of your sales, people return the product for whatever reason. It was defective, and that was your business. You said money back guarantee. If you're not happy, we'll give you money back. And of course, if something's wrong with it, we'll definitely give you money back. So let's just say 10% of the people return the product for whatever reason. So you booked 1 million of revenue, but you have to report 900K because you can't report the entire revenue if you got the product returned. So they still have 50+ billion of revenue. So it's not like they're not doing any business. Even with the defects are just a tiny sliver of their total business. Because Intel, 55 billion of revenue, it was 70 billion in 2021. And that's a big red flag. Yeah, let me pull it up. I like Taiwan Semi a lot. I just hate the fact that they're in Taiwan, because I always feel like there's risk. But I could have made a lot of money, of course, if I wasn't such a pussy and bought it. So this is Intel's revenue. So they were 50 billion. Intel had the most revenue of any semiconductor company forever, up until I think it was like mid 2022. Like, because even by September 2022, their revenue was 70 billion. NVIDIA just recently broke that mark. Like last year, before last year, Nvidia was like hardly any revenue, like 10 billion, 20 billion. So for 30 years, Intel had more revenue than any semiconductor company. But that changed last year when Nvidia, blew through the roof, and now Taiwan Semi has more revenue. So they're back to where they were 10 years ago, in the 50 billion revenue range, which is still the third largest. They were the largest. It's the third largest, but now they're in an industry that's much larger, because 5-6 years ago, the semiconductor industry was not nearly as important as it is today. I mean, everybody has to agree with that. There's so much demand, especially with AI and advanced computing. There's so much demand. So, I feel like I want to buy Intel, but I'm gonna feel like a moron if it keeps going down. At 100 billion market cap, it hasn't been this low since in the 90s. It was at this level in the 90s, 25 years ago. So it's trading at essentially like in the 20s, say 25. In 1997, it was trading at the same exact level it is today. So 27 years ago, if you were born in 1997, 27 years ago, it was at the same price. It was trading in the 20s, even higher. At different points, and even lower at different points. In 2000, that's their all-time high in 2000, when they were at the height of their game in the PC boom. They were responsible for, it was them, IBM, and Microsoft. Those three companies really benefited from everybody having a PC in a home. $50 billion is wild in terms of money, but they're losing money on foundry. Like, they're not even making that much, because they're still kind of building out their factories. So it just seems like, if by the end of next year, Intel was a $2 trillion market cap company, we would all say, God, it was so obvious. It was so obvious that they would, because they were building out their factories, and they were, at one point, they were like, well, we can figure it out. Well, they were never that. Maybe they were 300 billion at that peak. Because we missed a boat on Nvidia. And when we look back, it kind of made sense, but it was hard to identify. Like Meta we missed the boat when Meta fell below 100, because we could have all made a 500% return on that. That was super obvious, but we didn't go all in when Meta fell below 100. We were still scared. But now Intel is trading at almost at a 30-year low. So, Intel, by the end of next year, it's probably going to be the same where it is now. Maybe it'll be like possibly even lower. But in an unlikely scenario, like Trump really kills these Taiwanese companies, and everybody has to go to Intel, and Intel's $2 trillion, we're going to kick ourselves. We would think we were so stupid for not investing in Intel. I don't know. Second tier foundry still can make some money producing, because you would think Trump is going to really lean into Intel and try to like make them the best foundry, because he'd rather have people buy Intel chips because it creates everything. Everything is going to be within the United States. But let me see how. Okay, so yeah, so we expanded our partnerships. That was from the CHIPS Act. RAMP-C, they call it. RAMP-C enables customers to develop and fabricate chips on Intel 18A, including customers such as NVIDIA, IBM, Microsoft, Boeing, Northrop Grumman. Let's see if we can get the latest 10Q. So I don't even think they're making. They have hardly any revenue in the foundry business. It's pretty much still all in the regular business, and they're losing. They're losing so much money. Not only are they losing, their net income is negative 17 billion. Not only is their net income negative, but their cash flow, because you guys know net income and cash flow are totally different things. They're linked, but they're totally different. So where's statement of cash flows? So they did have positive operating cash flow, positive 5 billion, but they spent 18 billion in capex. So they burned 13 billion in the trailing 9 months. But that's what they're doing. They're building out factories. They're investing a lot into capex. That's the plan. And they really haven't done that much business because they're still building it out. I wish they would. I think there's a section where it does talk about and the reason they have negative net income, part of the reason, I thought they had a restructuring charge of 5.6 billion. That's only part of it, though. Well, let's look at their revenue. I just want to. So the foundry business has 4.4 billion of revenue in foundry. That's their that's manufacturing for other companies. Their regular business is 12 billion. Wait, how do they? Okay, right. So total revenue 13 billion, 4 billion is foundry. Since they manufacture their own chips, they have to minus out 4.3 billion so they don't double count. Because when they manufacture chips for NVIDIA, say they manufacture 1 billion of chips for NVIDIA, so NVIDIA pays them $1 billion. So that's 1 billion of revenue. But when they manufacture their own chips, it's $1 billion up here and $1 billion in foundry. So they're counting it twice. So that they have to eliminate here, intersegment eliminations, because it's double counting. Because do you guys, does that make sense? Well, they're losing taxpayers' money, but they're still. I mean, you can't build these high-tech factories and be profitable overnight. It's going to take at least a year or two after the factory's up and running. Because if you wanted to manufacture cars and you had to build a factory, it's impossible to become profitable until the factory is up and running and you had a lot of orders. Because, I mean, that's the whole, I mean, you could bash it all you want. I know, like, it's easy just to shit on companies. But, like, if you, yeah, say you were a car manufacturer say you wanted to build a facility to manufacture cars, and it cost $100 million. Like it's impossible to become profitable because there's so much upfront cost, right? So it doesn't matter how long it takes you, whether it takes you a year or 2 years to get it up and running. It's gonna be a cash burn until it gets up and running. But I'm not gonna even include that part. So say after 2 years you finally get it up and running, the factory. Now you have to sell a ton of cars. So say just for argument's sake, say you sell every car for $40K, and you still have expenses to make the car. And just to give you the benefit of the doubt, say the cost per car is half. So this is your profit per car. Let's just make it a little lower so it's not the same number, so there's no confusion. So every car you make, you can sell it to somebody for $40,000, but it costs you $15,000 to make it. So you make $25K per car. You still have to recoup your $100 million, of course. So how many cars do you have to sell just to break even on the factory? Is that right? 100. So you have to sell 4,000 cars just to get your original, which actually doesn't sound like that much. I'm surprised it's so little. Maybe 100 million is too small. Maybe you should DCF Bitcoin like a company, see what it would lead to. So you have to sell 4,000 cars just to get your initial $100 million back. So yeah, it's the same thing with these with building these factories. They have to because it costs money to make the product as well. So it's going to take time, but if things work out, why wouldn't Intel be bigger than NVIDIA? They should be bigger than NVIDIA, right? Intel Foundry. Intel Foundry. Okay, so they had 4.4 billion of revenue in the foundry business, and they had a loss of 5.8 billion. So they're still way underwater in foundry. That's why they reported such a big loss on their on their income statement, but it's all about scale. Once the business grows, then we'll see profits come in. Wait for new foundries. I mean, that's like, of course there could be new foundries, but it's really hard to compete to become a foundry. It's probably harder than building aircraft. Like, that's why there's so few companies that do it. If it was so easy, just start a company. Taiwan Semiconductors is a $1 trillion company, right? The largest foundry in the world. Why doesn't everybody just do that? Because it's hard. That there's hardly any companies that do it. Like, how many companies? I mean, how many pure play foundries are there? There's another one in Taiwan, maybe two other in Taiwan that are pure play foundry, that they only do foundry. They don't. Intel is not pure play foundry because they're foundry and fabless. But what other pure play foundry besides Taiwan? Okay, here, examples of pure play foundries are Global Foundries, Taiwan Semiconductor, and United Microelectronics. So Global Foundries, GFS, that's 23 billion market cap. Yeah, if anybody's going to compete with Intel and Taiwan Semiconductor, it would be companies that are currently in the business, because it's a hard business. It's very high barriers to entry. That's why, like a supermarket, like Amazon has actually low barriers to entry. Anybody can sell stuff online. It's very easy to do, right? But to compete with Amazon is pretty much impossible. But the barrier to entry for these companies is just so expensive to become a foundry. You know, you need at least $100 million, at least, but more probably in the billions. UMC looks attractive, right? 17 billion market cap. They pay a 6.5% dividend. But the thing is, I think the reason Intel is not as successful is because they do both, and they're kind of like jack of all trades, master at none. I think there's a good chance that they will start doing just foundry, like Taiwan Semiconductor, and not do any make their own chips, because their chips kind of are crap. You know, they're not that good quality. That's why everybody's buying NVIDIA, Broadcom. So I think I got cut off. Okay, I'm back. I hate when it does that. It just times out. So I think in 2-3 years, Intel will be a pure play foundry, because it's hard to do both, and they're not that good at making chips anymore. No one really, not no one, but not many people buying their chips. You can see they're losing market share like crazy. now that they have their foundry business in place, I think they will start to just focus on that. And because they obviously they want to become profitable, they want to make as much money as possible. So I think the way to go is just to do the foundry business, because I don't think they can compete anymore with NVIDIA or even Broadcom. And Taiwan Semiconductor is doing a good job at being a pure play foundry because they're in Taiwan. But you can be a U.S. company and do manufacturing overseas. A lot of companies do that. So they probably have manufacturing facilities actually. So Global Foundries is in New York, upstate New York, Malta, and Saratoga. But I bet you, where's Intel's factories? So Arizona, why does everybody go to Arizona to build a factory? Okay, Intel's factories. What country is Intel's factories? Okay, Intel has US, Ireland, and Israel. They should go to Taiwan or somewhere in Asia. It would probably save them a lot of money, but where does Intel have factories? Yeah, I know they have Arizona, New Mexico, and Oregon. So Israel is in Arizona doesn't have plenty of water. So yeah, so I think this could be, but if what I'm saying is accurate, that the tariffs will lead to people buying Intel products, I mean, the stock would reflect that in the stock. Like obviously, I mean, I guess it could still happen, but there's a lot of people smarter than me, so it would have the stock would have went up a lot in anticipation of companies using Intel over Taiwan Semiconductor. So that's not, unless I'm saying something that other people aren't seeing or don't believe is possible. Rapidos, a Japanese pure play foundry, will be coming up soon. That's what we should be looking at, is who are the pure play foundries. There's probably a few. There's probably a lot actually, but Taiwan Semi competitors. This is probably a better ship. So I would say Intel is their biggest competitor. Intel spent more money in CapEx, 25 billion, almost 25 billion, than Taiwan in the trailing 12 months. Taiwan Semiconductor is 10 times the size of Intel, and Intel spent more money. That's like, if you make 50K and your friend makes 500K. and you got a $40,000 car and he got a $30,000 car. That's like it would look odd. It would be like you buy a nicer car than this guy who makes so much more money than you, 10 times as much money as you. That's kind of like what Intel does. They're spending more money than Taiwan Semiconductor. So it looks kind of odd when someone is 10 times as big as you and you spend more than them. But Action Semiconductor, United Micro is just invest in all of them. Ace Group, is this the Japanese company you were talking about? Fit Han Teng. Wolfspeed is North Carolina and New York, but having a hard time making money. MediaTek, Next Chip, Power Chip, SMIC, STM. I guess I should just go through all, like these 20 well, actually, that's what I'm going to do tomorrow, actually. I'm going to go through all 64 semiconductor companies. We'll just do a quick search on each of them. Just to see who are the pure play foundries. Why doesn't this open? That's what, if 10 years ago, you knew semiconductors were going to be big, right? And 10 years ago, you put $10,000 into 20 companies. Say you put 10,000. And you didn't know which one was gonna be successful. So you put 10,000 to each. It's still a lot of money, $200,000. And you just let it ride. Like so if you put 10,000 to NVIDIA 10 years ago, you'd have $2.9 million today. And I don't know how the other companies did, but even if all the other companies went bankrupt, which they didn't, because I think Broadcom, you'd have like $500,000 today from 10,000. But let's just pretend all the companies went bankrupt. Even if 19 companies went bankrupt and you just had NVIDIA, you would have turned $200,000 to $2.9 million. But I know that's not the case, because even Intel 10 years ago would be like 8,000 today. So you wouldn't have lost like all your money, but you'd have probably like $5 million if you put 10,000 into all 20 companies, without even knowing who was going to be good. Okay, last half. I'll see you. Is the culture of the U.S. conducive to the chip manufacturer? That's the thing. It's so expensive in the U.S., but I think that's what Trump's doing. He's trying to make it where it's cheaper. It's better, like by charging other countries tariffs, and he's trying to find ways to encourage manufacturing in the U.S. So if he does that, yeah, Intel is going to benefit a lot. But it could be the other companies too. These global foundries may benefit a lot because they're in New York. UMC. Well, they're in Taiwan, so that's the other Taiwanese company. Yeah, so that's funny. Their market cap is 3.6 trillion, but you would have made, if you put 10,000, 2.9 million. Yeah, so something to think about. So don't be upset you missed a boat on NVIDIA. Maybe we can benefit from some, I don't know, Intel. Okay, I'm going to sign off. So yeah, so definitely something to think about. And I'm going to do some more research. And just, even if you're right, even if you get it right, just 1 out of 20, you can be very wealthy with investing. You don't have to, it's like in baseball, you want to bat, if you can bat 300, 30% correct, you win 30% of the time in baseball if you bat 300. But investing, you can bat, if you bat 100, you might be extremely successful if you pick the home run stock. Okay. Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you later.